Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Gabriel Campos, Solutions Architect here at Nexla. And today I'm excited to show you how Nexla can help accelerate your data integrations with customers and partners, simplifying complex data workflows and making it easier to create data products for your business. I'll be walking you through how Nexla's powerful platform can handle everything from traditional ETL to real-time streaming and API integrations, all with a no-code or low-code approach, helping your teams move faster and deliver data-ready products. So let's start with what's Nexla all about, right? Our mission is pretty straightforward, making sure you have ready-to-use data for whatever you need. Whether it's for AI, analytics, or day-to-day operations, Nexla is super versatile, kind of like your all-in-one data platform. We handle everything from classic ETL and ELT to real-time streaming and API integrations. So whatever your data needs are, we've got you covered. We work with companies in all kinds of industries, as you can see, from finance, healthcare, retail, you name it. Whether you're dealing with massive amounts of data or trying to make sense of different data formats, Nexla makes it easy to get things flowing and keeping everything organized. So your data is always ready when you need it. The best part, our platform is flexible, meaning you can grow and adapt your data operations without being tied down to one way of doing things or to a specific vendor. All right, so let's start by talking about where we're at with data today. You've got your data coming from all over the place, right? SaaS applications, on-prem systems, unstructured data, maybe even APIs, third-party sources. And all of this data needs to go somewhere, like your data warehouses, lakes, operational platforms, marketing, CRM tools. But it's not about just moving the data, right? You've also got to transform it, clean it up, and get it to the right format for whatever's next. So the need for seamless and scalable integration has never been bigger. Now, what usually happens is that companies build these point-to-point solutions. You write some custom scripts here, patch together some tools there, and you connect each system one by one, right? It works for a while, but as you add more sources and destinations, things start getting messy. It's like trying to juggle a bunch of different systems, and each connection requires its own tweaks and fixes. And before you know it, you've got a complicated web of connections that are very hard to maintain and prone to breaking down. Not exactly ideal, right? So that's exactly where Nexla steps in. Instead of dealing with all those individual point-to-point connections, Nexla acts as a central hub for your data. It's like the control center where all your data flows come together in one place. You connect your sources and destinations here, and Nexla handles the rest. Transformation, cleaning, making sure everything is in the right format, and you get this streamlined, reliable flow of all of your data. And it's all happening from one easy to manage platform. So instead of worrying about managing each connection, you can just focus on making the most out of your data. And we do all of that with one of our core components, our metadata intelligence. So this is what we call our data fabric, right? It's a layer that automatically assembles data products from your existing data. Think of it as a smart intermediary that understands your data, how to prepare it, and how to make it ready for use. Nexla's auto-assemble data products allow you to integrate data from multiple sources and transform it within a canonical single format without writing a single line of code. And this is where our concept of composable data and workflow integrations comes into play. Personally, I like to think of Nexla as a set of Lego blocks where you can assemble different components to create complex data workflows that are easy to manage and modify. And it's this composability that is key to build flexible and scalable data operations. So as you can see some examples here, you can send that over to integration platforms, cataloging tools. You can build your own data product marketplace. You can share that with external partners using clean room or these kind of approaches. So it is very flexible, right? And before we jump into the specific use cases, let's quickly take a look at how Nexla pulls everything together. So whether it's ETL, real-time streaming, reverse ETL, or even serve it as an API proxy, we've got you covered. So Nexla integrates data from all kinds of sources and makes sure it flows where and how you need it. Brandon from Instacart sums it up perfectly, in my opinion. Nexla makes sharing data between companies easy, no matter the format. So whenever you need to get data from your partners or send data across different external partners, Nexla can help you with that. So now that we've covered what Nexla can do, let's maybe jump into some real world examples, right? I want to show you how different companies are currently using Nexla to tackle their biggest data challenges, whether it's speeding up integrations or keeping operations running smoothly. We'll take a look at a few use cases to see how Nexla's flexibility comes into play across different industries, right? So as we were speaking of Instacart, let's talk about how they've used Nexla to overcome some pretty major challenges as they expanded their business. So as the largest online grocery marketplace in North America, Instacart has over 80,000 store locations and more than 1,400 retail partners. Between 2017 and 2023, they saw an eightfold increase in the number of retail partners, which sounds amazing. Yeah, it's a good problem, right? But it also brought some big challenges for their data engineering team. So the fast-paced growth meant that their team was spending too much time building and maintaining these data pipelines to integrate all of these new partners. They needed a faster, more automated way to handle all of this, right? And that's where Nexla came in. Using our platform, Instacart was able to speed up the entire retail partner onboarding process. Our universal connector helped automate their pipeline building, making it super easy to pull product and pricing data from new retail partners straight into Instacart systems. And the impact, well, pretty huge. They supported a 748% increase in retail partners. Also, reduced retailer launch time by 2 months, detected data anomalies much faster, which means fewer errors and a smoother experience overall. And finally, they cut their data engineering maintenance work by 5x, freeing up their team to focus on more important things, of course. So overall, Nexla helped Instacart scale quickly without all the extra manual work, and that's what we aim to do for all of our customers. Another cool example that we also have is SmartCard, a company that shows how reliable data management can make or break day-to-day operations, especially when it comes to IoT equipment. So they've got kiosks, luggage carts, lockers, much more. For them, if any of this equipment goes offline, it leads to loss of revenue and, of course, unhappy customers. So SmartCard needed a way to keep all of this equipment running smoothly, which meant closely monitoring their IoT network and minimizing downtime. Their old system required a ton of manual work just to keep the data pipelines running. And again, that's where Nexla came in. With our platform, SmartCard was able to automate those data flows and get real-time alerts if equipment wasn't working right. Like when a battery is running low or a scheduled ping doesn't come through. And this way, they can take action immediately and prevent downtime. The impact, pretty substantial as well. So they freed up 50% of their data analyst times. Maintenance time was cut by 90%. They avoided a 1% revenue loss by keeping all their equipment online. And now they have 100% reliable data flows, so no more manual fixes. And all this without needing constant monitoring, which means their team can also focus on generating insights instead of just keeping things running. So with all of that, I think we've covered the basics of like Nexla and how it streamlined data integration, right? So let's jump into a demo and I'll show you how easy it is to put all of this into action, right? For today's demo, I wanted to take you through a really common use case where we see with many of our customers onboarding new partners. So whether they're sending data via APIs, getting data from APIs, or simple CSV, Excel files, maybe on different file systems, Nexla makes it incredibly easy to get everything up and running without writing any code. So in today's demo, we're walking through 3 different flows that highlight how flexible Nexla can be for integrating from all sorts of sources. First up, we're pulling orders from an API. We're going to turn that into a next set, which again is our logical representation and abstraction of your data. We're going to do some light transformations and then enrich the data with information from other sources before sending it off to a data warehouse. Next, we're grabbing customer data from a partner, which could be files they upload, files they send via email. In this case, we're getting it from a data warehouse. And then we're going to filter out sensitive information and push that to a warehouse or file system. We're also going to use that data to enrich the first flow information in real time. So whenever we get data from the API, we're going to be able to extract customer information from our partner in real time to enrich our first data flow even further. Finally, we'll also set up a webhook to catch real-time events and trigger actions like sending notifications, emails, or even running some sort of automations on marketing systems. And this part is great for anything that needs to happen immediately, like the what I just discussed about smart card having these IoT equipments that are sending information in real time. So we're going to also set that up. So Nexla really gives you the flexibility to work with different APIs, files, event sources, all without being locked into one way of doing things, right? So let me switch my screen share right now, and then let's dive into the demo. Okay, so here you have the Nexla platform. In this example here, I don't have any data flow created yet because I'm going to do all of it live with you right now. So let's start with pulling data from different APIs, right? I'm going to create a new data flow, and we have many different types of data flows that adapt to different use cases. Flex flow is one of our most used flow type. It adapts to ETL, API to API, reverse ETL, and many more. We also have replication, Spark, and change data capture for databases. These are for more complex use cases. We're going with Flex flow. And then we have our huge connector list. So we have hundreds of different connectors out of the box. And I think it's not only having all of these connectors that makes Nexla so powerful, but also the ability to create connectors on the fly. So let's say I want to connect to an API that is not on this list. I know that this list is huge, but maybe I want to connect to a very specific system, a legacy system, something that is not natively supported by Nexla. So that is where our generic REST API connector comes into play. You can easily click on this REST API connector, and from here we have a credentials in, connectors out philosophy. So this is my credential management screen where I can select from credentials that I have access to. Optionally, I could add a new credential to my platform, and once I do that, that's going to automatically generate a connector for me. So by specifying how you authenticate and how you should query a specific API, Nexla is going to be able to automatically handle everything else for you in a very friendly way. So even if you didn't set up any API before in your code, you can easily walk through the step-by-step guide that Nexla provides and get that API flowing and get your data from that API using Nexla. So let me add and create a new credential from scratch. I'm going to show that to you how it works. So here I have my API type is going to be a generic REST API. And then on the authentication type, I have many different authentication modes. So basic authentication, API keys, OAuth 1, 2, short-lived tokens. So as you can see, this covers 99%, if I may say, of all the APIs out there, right? So let me, in this example here, we're going to connect to an API that uses an API key as an authentication method, right? So I'm going to select API key, and then it opens up some additional parameters for me to set it up. So what I'm going to do is specify which header my API key needs to be in. And also I'm going to specify what is the value of my API key. So what is my API key in question? This is going to be, of course, safely stored in Nexla's credential vault. And you can later share this credential only with relevant people or teams that need access to this system, meaning that Nexla has full role-based access control that makes it much easier to fine-tune and really have the fine-grained control of who has access to which system. Okay, so here I'm going to define also a credential validation URL. So Nexla is going to try to hit that to validate that this API is valid. And in this example, we're using just a mock API. And then I'm going to give it a name. So it's going to be mock sales transactions API. That's going to be my name. Then I can click on save. That's going to create a new credential on the platform. Nexla is going to automatically test that credential for me. And because it's valid, I'm now on the API designer screen. So this is the API configuration where I can set and test how I want to extract data from my API. Again, this is very, very flexible, and it's a lot easier than writing it manually using code, right? So here I have my endpoint, I can define my method, and I can easily test it to see if it's working. I will see my test result on this right section here, and I can see all the records that I have coming from this mock API. Optionally, if I want to do incremental loads or maybe API filtering, I could leverage macros as with date formats to really create these incremental pipelines of reading data from every day. And also, I could leverage different lookups. So let's say I have a list of user IDs on a specific database, and later using my API, I want to iterate over this user list. I could also leverage that as a macro here. So if I wanted to go over specific transactions based on information that I might have on a separate source, Nexla also gives you the ability to bring lookup macros to this screen, right? So here, basically, I define that I want to get all my records from my response. Maybe if this API has any pagination options, I could also set it here, any request headers that I might want to put additionally to what I had on my credential. I can also define them here. So as you can see, this is very, very, very flexible and accommodates for almost any API that you want to connect out there. Lastly, you want to select your scheduling options, right? So in this example, let's say I want to fetch data every day at a specific time. So I can set that here. But if you wanted to check for data every hour, every n hours, every 15 minutes. So scheduling options and orchestration is also very very easy to maintain here at Nexla. So let's give it a name. Let's say that this is going to be the sales transactions source, and then we can hit create, and that's going to create my source for me. And now what you're seeing here is the source representation. But now you're also seeing an additional box, which stands for a next set. So as you can see, we have here next sets detected by Nexla, and you have this detected next set. So again, this is our data abstraction layer, right? So this is just a logical representation of your data that is brought to you by our metadata intelligence. So as you can see, we have labeled your data according to what we understood that this data stands for. As you can see, this appears to be a phone number string. This is an email string, and we have more numbers here. So we have a constantly running metadata intelligence engine running on top of your data and your samples to make sure that whenever your source updates its schema, Nexla automatically adapts to that as well. So within that data product, within that representation of your data, you have a complete tool set which you can leverage for many different purposes. So maybe you can register that in a data catalog. Maybe you want to query that programmatically using an API. Maybe you want to document that data product. You want to generate its documentation with GenAI. You want to share that data product with relevant people. You want to see what were the stats and the read stats for that data product. As you can see, it's a complete and fully fledged tool set around your data. So this is the first representation we get from your data. is this canonical format that Nexla brings to the table that enables you to perform cross-source joins, for example, or even query all of your data in the same way, use the same set of transformations. So you're not using like SQL transformations for SQL sources and then some sort of code transformations for API sources, because once the data is inside Nexla, it's the same formats. It's the same formats, and it's the same canonical way of transforming that data, right? So now that I have my data here, I have my transactions, sales transactions data. I can easily transform it by clicking transform, and that's going to bring me to the next set designer. So the next set designer is is where you're going to define your transformations, validations, filters, and everything, every operation you want to run on top of your data. So on the left side, you have your input, right? You have what your data looks like. Uh, then in the middle, soon we're going to have our transformation rules, and then the output is going to appear on the right hand side. Optionally, you could also leverage schema templates, and you can register many different schema templates based on what the data should look like on your destination, and also leverage these schema templates to make Nexla recommend transformations for you and make it easier to map from source and many different sources to a canonical representation on your destination and downstream systems. So as you can see here, we already have some suggestions of transformations that we have here. So recommendations based on the data that we have. Optionally, we can manually add many different types of transformations from code, aggregation using SQL, setting default values, filters, and validations, as I mentioned before. Let's choose transform as an example. And here we have dozens of no-code transformations from date and time conversions, conditional logic, array operations, and many more. So even if you don't know how to code, you would be able to leverage these no-code transformations out of the box, just like as if they were Excel formulas, for example. So by defining specific attributes to these functions, you can easily leverage transformations. So let's create one on the fly here. So I don't have a script for these transformations. Let's create one on the fly. So for example, if I select discount applied, I have a suggestion here to multiply it by 10. But in this case, I might want to divide it by 10. So I can have a float instead of an integer on this discount applied. Let me also delete this first one. And let me say that that's going to be float, right? So, and here we have like 2.3, but of course, if I want it to be a float, I want to divide by 100. So now I have it as a float. So as you can see, it's easy to transform and massage your data in a way that you make sure that the data product you're creating from scratch is ready to be consumed by your end users, your business users, or ready to also be landed into your data warehouses, downstream systems, databases, anything you can imagine. So let's now get a more complex transformation into play, right? So you can see here that from this data, we don't have any information on the customer except for customer email. So the only thing I know about this customer is the email. And that might be to several reasons. Of course, this is just a demo. This is mock data. Let's say I want to enrich that data, right? I want to be able to, from a separate source, maybe I have a marketing partner that brings me demographics information on people, or I don't know, they have a mailing list with corresponding user information based on their emails. I've hired their service, but now how do I make sure that the data they're giving me is being used correctly on my data flows, right? So this is a little bit more complex because they might be delivering this data into a completely different format in a completely different way on a different system. So it's not coming within the same API. Okay, so let me save and close this for now. Let's keep just the discount. And this is, of course, I've created a new next set. We're going to go back for it in a second. Let me say that this is going to be the created data product. Of course, now it only has the discounted applied float, but I promise you we'll enrich that data in a moment. So let me create a new data flow now. Instead of getting data from an API, Now I'm going to get data from where my partner is landing customer information on, which is BigQuery in this example. It could be any connector, by the way. I'm just using BigQuery as an example of how you can join multi-model sources together. So an API with a database, an API with a webhook, etc. Um, and here I have my credential. Once again, you could have created it from scratch. These are the credentials I have access to. I click next, and let's bring some data from this database, right? So on this demo data set, I have demo customer data. And here I can select it, fetch some sample data, and check what the data in this database looks like. As you can see, I have some some more information from customers, and I also have their email, right? So this is a key, an attribute that I could potentially join with my API. But if I were to do that externally without using Nexla, I would need to probably write some very complex code, right? So to do that programmatically, we're going to leverage a feature that Nexla provides out of the box, which is the ability of generating an API to any source. So whenever you connect to a source using Nexla, it's able to automatically generate an API endpoint, in which you can easily query data within that source and then filtering data based on custom parameters. To do that, let's go to the query mode and say that I want to select everything that's on that customer data table. So select everything from this customer data where email equals, and then now I'm going to inform and define a Nexla macro. And this is very powerful. Let me zoom in a little bit because this might be a little bit too small for you to see. So now I'm going to define a Nexla macro and say that email is going to be parameterizable. And just for the sake of testing, I'm going to put a default email just so we can test whether this is working or not. So this is working. It's just retrieving the first email as described. And I'm going to say that this is going to be my partner customer information. And I'm going to create this source, right? I can select it to read data every day as well. I can select its scheduling options. That's not going to interfere with my programmatic pool of that data when needed. So I can do both. I can send that data every day to my file systems, to my email, to anything I wanted to connect to. And in parallel, I could also programmatically query that data from my other data flow, which, by the way, is what I'm going to do right now. So let me say I also want to pull that every day. I'm going to create that source, right? So let me take the zoom out again. And that's going to, again, create a detected next set. And now we have it here, our detected next set. And now let's click here on show data feed URL. So this is going to create and generate, let me zoom in a little bit again, so it's easier for you to see. That's going to generate a curl request, a sample of a curl request I can make to an API that is coming from Nexla automatically to this data product. The beauty of it is that if I wanted to transform this data product, let's say get rid of some personal identifiable information or just filter things that I don't want the other flow to get, I could also do that and leverage my data feed API for the transformed data, which is awesome, right? So for example, let's do it right now, just for demo purposes. Let me transform this data. And let's say that instead of sending everything, I want to mask the phone. So let's create a transformation. Oops, not a code transformation, sorry. Let's create a transformation. It's going to be mask data. This is a built-in code transformation that someone in my organization has created before for me. And then my data to mask is going to be my phone attribute. And I'm going to show, I'm going to show the last 4 digits of the phone, right? And I'm going to call that masked phone. When I run that, let me go back. For some reason, I think this function, this is the beauty of a live demo, right? This function might not be working, so let me try once more and see if that works. Yeah, now it's working. Sorry about that, a little hiccup. And we're showing only the last 4 digits of that phone now. So we're masking data as we might need to. So you can perform any kind of operations here. And let me move everything else, right? Let me move everything else except the phone, just the way as it is. Let me just mask the phone for now, just as an example of how we can transform this data and call the transform data. I'm going to call this masked customer information, and I'm going to save and close this, right? So now you have, again, your partner data coming from your source. Then we have a detected Nexat. We are transforming this data maybe to mask it, enrich it, anything. And then we have a derived Nexat. You can do this infinitely, right? You can infinitely derive new Nexats from Nexats from Nexats, and this go on and on and on. And I assure you, we have a lot of customers that are using and leveraging very, very complex data flows with multiple different forks with different next sets and destinations. It's incredible. And then from here, now I have my transformed masked customer information with the masked phone. I can also generate a data feed URL for this data product. And this is the beauty of it. So now I'm going to leverage this transformed data product to join with my existing data flow. So let's go back a bit. So again, I have my sales transactions data flow, right? And we stopped at this stage, right? So let's edit this next set once again. This is the curated data product we were building before. But now let's get the product, the region, the salesperson total revenue as well. And now we want to get the customer information coming from our partner, right? Again, this data here is coming from an API. My customer enriched information is coming from my data warehouse. So it's completely completely different sources, right? I'm going to leverage a transformation that is called get nextset data. And it does exactly what it says. So we're going to inform our nextset ID, right? So I got my nextset ID, which is my transformed nextset, the masked with the masked phone numbers, right? And then my API key that I got from the data feed API, I'm going to call that customer info. And my parameter is going to be the email, right? Because I defined on my partner data that I wanted to query customers using their email. And then the corresponding attribute on this next set is the email. So I'm just going to link them, right? And then I'm going to run this. And hopefully you will see in a few seconds the join data on the output. As you can see, now let me also zoom in a little bit and bring that over here. You can see that we have a customer info array with all records coming from the database. Meaning, if we had multiple records for the same email, let's say maybe we have different information on every record on that database, we would bring all of them, right? And we're bringing data from that database programmatically. And as you can see here, it's the transformed data. It's not the raw data, right? Meaning you can go crazy with this, right? You can, through the other next set, you can join it with other next sets as well. You can enrich it even further. You can, I mean, create as many steps as you would like. This is just a simple example, but I think you now see where I'm going with this, is that this is incredibly powerful to join data from a lot of different places, right? So now let's say that this is my data product. Now I have the product that I had, my salesperson that sold this product, my discount, my total revenue, and then I have my customer info. It's no longer just an email, it's complete customer information along with this data product. So now I can say that this is just not curated, but also curated and enriched data product. I'm going to say that this is also filtered because I'm going to add a filter, right? I'm going to add a filter because I'm seeing here that for some records, I don't have the salesperson. I don't want that. I want every record to have the salesperson because I don't know, maybe that's a constraint on my downstream system. So I'm going to say that the salesperson must not be null, right? So you'll see in a few seconds when that transformation finishes that we're going to filter all this we're going to filter all null values, and we're going to have all non-null values for salesperson now. So the first one got filtered, as you can see, and now we have a ready to consume data product. Let me save and close this. And again, we're going to have that curated next set as we had before, but now with our recent changes of customer information. So that's how easy Nexla makes for anyone, for a data engineer, for a business user, to bring data from an API, join this data with a database, and then land that data into many different systems of choice if needed. As I mentioned before, all of our, I don't know actually if I mentioned this before, but all of our connectors are bidirectional whenever the system supports it, which means that when I click send to destination, I will get the same hundreds of connectors that I had before as well. So meaning I could send to any of these destinations, right? I could send, for example, to an Amazon S3 destination. Let's see if I have some valid credentials. I'm just doing this freestyle on the fly. So I have here my S3 folder structure. Let me put it on a demo folder. I'm going to put that. You can also set your Nexla macros here. So if you want to separate that dynamically by date, Nexla also supports that. But maybe you want to separate that dynamically by let's say I want to create a folder for every specific customer email. You can also do that. It's going to generate a folder for every customer email. And I mean, the flexibility is what I wanted to highlight here, right? It's not every day that you find a platform that can do all of this within a few minutes, within a few clicks away. And I'm just taking a little bit longer because I'm explaining every step to you, right? But in a real life scenario, you could do that within a few minutes. So let's say I just want to put that in customers data out. Sorry. And here you have different data format conversions. So this is all natively supported by Nexla. We can automatically convert uh, anything that we got inside Nexla to many different file system formats, such as Avro, CSVs, Excel, fixed width files, JSON, Parquet, and many more, right? So let's land that in a JSON format. We can enable record lineage as well. Nexla fully supports record lineage from source to transformations to destinations. So I imagine when you have like hundreds and thousands of different data flows, you might be wondering, hey, where this record came from, come from, and this is totally understandable, and that's why we also provide you with a fully fledged record lineage capability, right? And then I can say that this is going to be my S3 customer info bucket. Let's say that's going to be it. And I can click done. And now within a few seconds, I've created a flow that gets sales transactions data from an API, enriches, filters, transforms that data product together with partner information that is coming from a data warehouse, but it could come from any other supported connector, of course, and then landing that on my S3 bucket, right? I could land that into a data warehouse of choice as well, such as BigQuery, Snowflake, and this is not just point to point, as I mentioned. So if I wanted to send that to BigQuery, let's try that, right? Let's send that to BigQuery as well. So it's the same flow. Again, it's the same next set. I'm just sending it to different destinations, the same one, right? I'm going to create a new table. I'm going to automatically map all of my attributes to my database columns. I'm going to call that demo customer out. I'm going to say that this is my data warehouse destination. I'm going to click done. And as you can see, now we have two destinations. And again, you can create multiple different destinations. You can create a file system, a data warehouse. You could receive these reports as email. So if I wanted to send this over to my email, I could also do that. Maybe you want to, every time you get new customer information from your partners, you want your sales team to receive an email. You can also do that. So let's say I want to send this to my email, my Nexla email. I can set my subject. Again, I can select to receive this as a CSV, for example, and I can say that this is my sales team email. As you can see, it's very flexible, right? I can create multiple different destinations just for the sake of the demo, but as you can see, it's totally polyglot from source to destination. And last thing I wanted to showcase before opening up for Q&A, because I know that we're 42 minutes into this webinar, is the ability to receive real-time streaming events. This is very powerful as well, because let's say you connect to a marketing partner or to I don't know, trends partner, insights partner that gives you real-time insights on things that are happening right now, right? And maybe give you actionable insights on how you need to communicate with your customers, or if you want to fire some specific marketing actions or campaigns. What you can also do is create a flow which sources a webhook. So this is going to listen for real-time events coming from different platforms. Also, Kafka topics and PubSub streaming sources. So whenever you have data coming in real time, Nexla also supports that. Let's create, just for the demo, a webhook, right? Because this is the most compatible, I think, type of source that is also able to connect to 90% of all the platforms out there. So let's say that this is going to be my marketing webhook, and you can select from two different authorization types. Let's stick with API key. We're going to generate a webhook URL, right? And here I have some sample payloads in which I can send to this webhook. As you can see, it's not bound to a specific type. You can send JSON, you can say XML. So it's very, very flexible as well to adapt to your source systems. And let me get that curl request. I'm going to create that. Of course, that's going to start listening to new requests. And I'm going to, on a separate screen right now, I have Postman, of course. And I'm going to say that I'm going to send a sample payload which basically sends something that is similar to what we would get in demographics or tracking, sorry, in a tracking platform that you plug into your blog, to your website, or anything like that to get relevant actions from your customers into your marketing systems. So let me get a sample email here, and I'm going to trigger what would be like a click event from a marketing system, and then it will be linked to that email, right? I'm gonna say that the page is gonna be webinar, the name of the page. I'm just creating that on a different screen. Sorry, you're gonna see that in a second. So I'm gonna send that. That's been sent, and instantly I get a detected next set. So as you can see, I have my action, clicked page, I have my email, the email of the user that has performed this action, I have the ID and the page, which is called webinar. This was done through the exact post request that is described here. It could be any payload. And then from here, I can also enrich this. Again, the same mechanism, taking the email from this customer and enriching this with relevant information for this customer, and maybe trigger some marketing actions on different systems, such as MailChimp. We have this out-of-the-box connector for MailChimp. Or let's say you want to trigger some actions on Salesforce or Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So as you can see, it's a lot. If you want to trigger actions on your CRM, HubSpot, it's all on the fly, meaning your customer has clicked something on your website, on your platform, anywhere. You set that to send data to Nexla. Nexla is going to be able to enrich, transform, filter, validate that data, and create an action or trigger an action on a destination system of choice, or multiple different destination systems of choice. Maybe you want to trigger Salesforce, HubSpot, MailChimp all together. You can do that, right? Okay, so I think I've been through a lot of stuff in this webinar. Uh, there is much more to cover, I think. Of course, now I would open it for questions if you have any. I'd appreciate any questions for you. I'd be happy to answer. And before that, let me take a sip of water because my throat is dry from talking too much. Okay. Thank you. So I have some questions here already. Let me take a look at one. So yeah, so this is related to multi-step API resources. And the question is, can Nexla handle API that require multiple steps, like sending an initial request to get a job ID and then polling for the results later? How does that process work in the platform? The answer is yes. So Nexla is able to natively create jobs, asynchronous jobs, what we call. So for example, Salesforce has the bulk API interface in which you can easily create a job and then you get a job ID. And then you start querying for the job status. And when the job finishes, you get a file-like uh, payload from the API. Nexla supports that. We have many customers leveraging that type of API, and it's natively supported out of the box. And I think it's especially useful for systems that have a lot of data and maybe pulling from individual API queries it's a lot. It's going to probably be rate limited, right? Yeah. So any further questions? I think I have another one. So beyond webhooks, oh, I think this was already answered. What are some of the streaming sources you support? So yes, we support Kafka and also PubSub. You can connect to your Kafka topics and send data. Nexla can read automatically from these Kafka topics or PubSub, and we can also send data streaming to these topics, right? And we have one. Is there a way for Nexla to persist data in a table for future use? For example, can I store lookups in the platform to use dynamically across multiple flows instead of having that on my data warehouse? Yes. Yes. So I want to answer this question with two pieces of information. First of all, Nexla doesn't persist any of your data, right? Everything that you saw is happens in a streaming fashion. Even when you query our dynamically generated API, we're going to query your source for information on the fly, right? So if it's connected to a database, Nexla is going to bring the most recent information from that database. Of course, we do have a cache layer on top of it, which we can parameterize, but we're not persisting any of your data, right? Nexla by default doesn't persist anything. And that's why we're SOC compliant, HIPAA compliant, and we are not replicating any of your data. That's first. But in the case you don't want to leverage your own data warehouses, let's say to store your partner information, you can leverage Nexla's lookups, and then we can persist some of your data just for lookup purposes. So that's going to have an enhanced performance compared to querying a database dynamically, because it's sitting on the Nexla infrastructure as well. So yes, we can optionally persist this data on lookups of our own, right? And I got another one, which is, how does Nexla handle schema mapping when the structure of the source data changes over time? That is a very, very good question, because I think that's the one of the areas, I might say, where Nexla shines the most. So where you see these detected next sets, whenever we get schema updates from your source, if that's a subset or superset of your schema, Nexla is going to be able to automatically adapt within the same next set, right? Because you might want to process the same way. If it's a subset or if it's a superset, you might want to send data across the same way. If it's completely different, you might say, that's Gabriel, you might ask, is that going to break Nexla? No, we're going to generate a new next set for you optionally. You can optionally force a single schema as well. So you can force everything to be detected as a single schema and process everything within the same pipeline without disruptions. So you can have it both ways. If you want your data engineers to come in and change transformations based on changes to your source schema, you can do that. If you want things to be processed automatically by Nexla and handled automatically, you can also do that, right? So you can have it both ways. I'm happy also to start a conversation if you want, and let's get over into a detailed demo of your specific use case to showcase how we can achieve your desired behavior. So I think we're almost at time. First of all, thank you all for joining. I'm happy. I'm always happy to be here presenting webinars and showing how Nexla is powerful. I truly believe that this is that we have a lot of powerful features that help people integrating data from partners, internal data, external data, sending that through, and really helping people with data pipelines. So one thing before we end this is I wanted to invite you to try Nexla, right? So here on your screen right now, you have our free trial link in which you can easily set up your free trial environment. And later, if you want to get some more complex use cases, including Gen AI. I know I've spoken about Gen AI a lot recently. You can contact us at sales@nexla.com. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you can contact me at gabriel.campos, Campos, at nexla.com as well. So thank you all for joining. That was it. Have a great day.